You are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Info Media.
Hello and welcome to CIOTV.live. This is day 2 of JISEC Dubai. I'm at the booth of Tenable. I don't need to introduce Tenable to you. I have got very senior person from Tenable. His name is Mr. Bernard Montel. He is the technical director and security strategy for EMEA region at Tenable. Bernard, thank you very much for taking time out and speaking to CIOTV.live. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's also a very pleasure to be here today and talking to you.
Bernard, my first question, what's your impression on learning for last 2 days here in this expo, in JISEC?
So my impression, it's a huge expo. It's very impressive. A lot of people, a lot of energy, and I've been in JISEC last year, and I was very happy to be back again this year. And I'm also very impressed by the nature of the event, the exchange as well that we have with customers and our partners around this event.
All right, Bernard. Now you know the adversaries are many, and cybersecurity market is changing every day. How do you see this evolution of technology? How do you see the growth in the adversaries, the cyber attacks, the hacking, incidents?
So, I mean, the cybersecurity is really evolving as the attack surface is evolving as well. We are having an attack surface which is highly dynamic, very growing, that's for sure, but also very highly interconnected. From the OT systems that were not connected, a couple of years ago, to the cloud transformation of our organizations and also the identity. So the attack surface as well is highly dynamic. This is why this market need to be updated all the time, need to be really in the, focus point, being able to adapt. Regarding the threat landscape, as you know, we've launched, like we do every year, a threat landscape report, which is looking backward, but the more important part is really to understand what we have ahead of us. Ahead of us, we have attackers that now are really trying to be much more disruptive. We have attacks against critical infrastructures, but the top one is still ransomwares with roughly 35%, which is quite sustained, year after year. Ransomware and cyber criminals are still the top one, attackers around us with the threats that we have today.
Okay. From a Tenable perspective, where do you see that your forte lies? What exactly are you doing to deter the cyber attackers?
So at Tenable, we have only one goal, is to prevent attacks. We are in what we are calling exposure management. The goal is to give to our customers a holistic view of their attack surface. The capacity to understand if there is any attack path that can be used by the hackers in advance. We want to be able to help our customers to discover the attack path, and that's what we call exposure management.
Bernard, there are few reasons which are doing pretty well and few reasons which are not doing pretty well from a standpoint of progression, economic growth. So from your learnings, how do you say this reason, and what is the opportunity from cybersecurity point of view?
So, I mean, the number of vulnerabilities is growing 24%, globally year after year. Okay. Now, the number of people in the teams are not growing, so we have clearly a problem here. The way we want to be able to address that is to have all the data together. We call that a platform, where the customer will be able to have one holistic view into one single risk-based capacity. By doing that, we help them to reduce the complexity of all those exposure, because we are putting them together. This is how we try to help them, because obviously their team will not grow by 25% year after year. So they have to have a risk approach. They need to be smart in finding what is risky for their business and only focusing on detecting exposure that could target a business critical application.
Now the challenge for the CISOs or the CIOs, I think you mentioned a little bit, their team cannot grow, but other challenge, whatever team they have, maybe small or big, skilling is very big issue for them. From your perspective, from Tenable perspective, how are you investing on the skilling part of the customers?
So the threat landscape report had that as well as an objective. It's not just a picture of what's happened before. It's also an education. People need to be aware about what's happened every day. They need to look at the news. They need to be able to understand the headlines. There are evolutions today. The ransomware ecosystem is evolving. 2 years ago, they only encrypted data. Today, they are wiping data. We are calling that extortion only. One of those groups is lapsus. If you know that threat, then you adapt your program, your process, your people and technology accordingly. Our goal is to help them to be able to have that exposure management capacity, but from an education perspective, people need to be aware. People need to share information. We believe that the vulnerability need to be published as soon as possible. Then not only the attackers they know it already, but the defenders, they need to know that information. We are playing a very big role with our research team to be able not only to find the vulnerabilities, we are the number one company finding the 0 days, but also sharing it, making the people aware, and that is the information from an educational perspective, which is very, very important.
All right, Bernard. The prolonged effect of Central Asia unrest.
Yeah, okay.
You understand what I am trying to say. What would be the effect of that unrest on the equation of cybersecurity or cyber challenges in the entire world?
So, you mean the world here around this region?
Anywhere, because of this war and other things that are happening at the backdrop.
So, we have to understand, the cyber threats. The top one is still cyber criminals, but obviously we've seen so far everywhere in the world nation-state attacks as well and hacktivism. So this is a combination. What is important is not really, the reason of attack. What is important is how they do it. And the way they do it is always the same. They use what we call known or very well-known vulnerabilities that are there for many, many years. Organizations need to take care about patching because the majority of the attacks are not using 0 days. 0 days are very important, but the majority of the attacks are using vulnerabilities which are here for many, many years. Whatever the reason of the attacks, whatever it is, those three that I mentioned before, what is important is how the attackers are operating. Because if you are in a critical path of a bigger attack, then you need to take care about how they do, finding the attack path, and keep in mind that the majority of the times they are using identity theft around Active Directory, they are using very well-known vulnerabilities where patch exists for months or sometimes even a couple of years.
All right, I think I'll be asking you the final question regarding Tenable. As an organization, in this region particularly, how do you see the investment is coming? Where are you strengthening your business here? What is the kind of focus you have on the training, scaling of the customers, your partners? If you can say something about that, will be really nice.
From a future perspective, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, but what I can say is that right now people are really concerned about how to identify, vulnerabilities in a very, very large definition. We're not talking about CVE only anymore. Our education to the market is that keep in mind that misconfiguration is equally important than a level of CVE. Okay, CVE is very important, but misconfiguration in the cloud, in the identity, that's the way we try to help cybersecurity practitioners to understand that it's not only one single piece of the puzzle, it's all the pieces together and the link between them. So we are doing a lot of education. We have educational services. We are doing trainings, not only on the product as well. We are trying to really educate the market and our security practitioners about the trends that are out there. And every year, this, as you said at the very beginning, the cybersecurity landscape is really evolving very, very fast. So yesterday we talked about vulnerabilities. Tomorrow we talk about cloud, and those are now linked together.
All right. Finally, if you can give some glimpses of the roadmap of your product or services for 2023, it will be really nice. I know that it's very difficult.
Unfortunately, we never share. I mean, if you look at what we've done, we were covering scope within the attack surface with single solutions. The VM solution, the identity with the acquisition of Alcid that we had 2 years ago. We've done a couple of acquisitions that is public. You can find them in the cloud space, in the OT space. We had and we still have, single solutions to address those scopes. What is very new is that we have created a platform to aggregate the data, to correlate the data of those solutions all together. This is how we help our customers to go quicker to identify exposure. What I can say for the future, that platform is clearly a very important investment that we've done, and we will certainly enhance with a lot of new capacity at the platform level. Keep in mind as well that those solutions that are sending the data into the platform, we have a strong roadmap for them because there are key elements, data sources to the platform. But that's a double approach. We will still have a best of breed approach, but we are believing that the platform and the cloud is clearly the future.
Okay. All right, I understand the entire perspective that you are trying to give to me. The other thing, if you can shed some light on, from the vulnerability point of view, some of the new or existing vulnerability or existing ransomware that is going to be active in future times. What is your view or prediction?
So I've done a research on a ransomware group called Vice Society that came out in August 2021, but has been very, very active last year, targeting the education sector. 14 schools in the UK, one big university in Germany, but also fire stations in Australia. So what we've seen as an evolution is smaller groups of ransomware targeting a sector, instead of kind of ransomware groups in the past were targeting everywhere, everyone. So we've seen that specialization of the ransomware groups, from an evolution perspective. Regarding vulnerabilities, Log4Shell, that we've talked a lot at the beginning of 2022, end of 2021 and 2022, we've seen as well what we call reinfection. People were so focused on Log4Shell at the beginning of 2022, but they introduced new applications, they introduced new systems back to their ecosystem globally. They didn't really look after the fact that potentially those new systems were still using Log4j as a library, which was a vulnerable library. So we've seen that because we are using telemetry in our systems, and we have seen a growth of Log4Shell back again. Now, the majority of the vulnerability, we can also mention proxy shell, Spring Shell as well, which are really using those well-known vulnerabilities which has been here for many, many years now.
All right, Bernard, thank you very much for taking time out and speaking to Enterprise IT EMEA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Bernard Montel, Technical Director, Security Strategy, EMEA for Tenable. You heard him speak about futuristic vulnerability and the evolution of ransomware. Thank you for watching this episode of CIOTV.live.